The cold air at the Salt Lake City station stung my face as I stood there, bags at my feet, staring at the empty platform. The train had come and gone. They had said they'd wait. I looked around again, just in case. Maybe they were nearby. Maybe they stepped away to grab coffee or use the restroom. But no, I was alone. My breath fogged in the morning chill, each exhale quieter than the last. I checked my phone again. No new messages, nothing on the family group chat, no missed calls. We were supposed to be heading out to visit relatives. A simple trip. One mom had organized weeks ago. She even reminded me twice the night before. But now, here I was, stranded, like an afterthought. I sat down on the bench, the metal cold against my jeans. Around me, life continued. A mother gathered her kids. A young couple argued over tickets. The station hummed, but inside, everything was still. Funny how silence in public can feel louder than screaming. I wasn't surprised. Not really. Things hadn't been right in a while. Since Dad died, the air in our house had thickened, like every word might set off an invisible tripwire. Mom tried to hold it together, but mostly for show. My sister Vanessa, she barely tried. She'd always been the loud one, the one with opinions. I was the quiet one, the youngest, the extra. It was easy to be forgotten when you're the quiet one. Family dinners turned into debates I wasn't invited to. I'd open my mouth and someone would talk over me, or worse, pretend I hadn't spoken at all. Vanessa once told me, right in front of Mom, "You should speak up more, or not at all." They laughed. In some families, silence is not golden. It's just the cost of being unwanted. I read that in a book once. Stuck with me, because it felt real. Over the past few months, they started making decisions without me. House things, life things. I'd find out plans after they were made. One weekend, I came home to find half the living room repainted. They didn't even ask what I thought. "You're too sensitive," Vanessa said when I brought it up. "It's just paint." But it wasn't just paint. It was pattern, a choice. One night, I tried to have a serious talk, asked them why they always shut me out. Vanessa laughed, leaned back in her chair and said, "He's having his little feelings again." Mom didn't say anything, just kept eating. Still, I hoped that maybe they'd see me eventually, that maybe I mattered. I looked at the clock on the station wall. 35 minutes had passed. I tried calling. First Mom, no answer. Then Vanessa, straight to voicemail. A man walked by, paused. "You waiting for someone, buddy? You've been here a while." I nodded but said nothing. Then I pulled up the shared location app on my phone. We always used it. Safety, Mom said. Their little dots weren't near the station, not even in the city. They were already gone. And suddenly it was clear. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't bad timing. They left me. They didn't just forget. I wasn't even a factor. "They planned this," I whispered. No rage, no tears, just realization. My chest felt heavy, but not from pain, from the weight of clarity. Everything started lining up. Vanessa's unusually kind tone last night. Mom saying, "Don't forget to pack everything. You won't be coming back for a while." I thought she meant the trip. No, they meant this. And then I remembered what Vanessa said, half smiling over dinner. "Tomorrow, everything changes." It had already changed. They left me here like lost luggage, unwanted and unneeded. But there was something they didn't know. A week ago, I'd gone through Dad's old files, found the deed to the mansion, the house he built from the ground up, the same one Vanessa was so obsessed with. I'd taken it to a lawyer, quietly. He looked it over and said, "You're the sole signatory now. Your father amended the deed before he passed. It's yours." I never told them. Something told me not to. And now I understood why. They think they've outplayed me. That they dropped me off like trash and drove off into a future that was never theirs to claim. But they didn't read the paper I signed. They don't know what's waiting. I stood up, brushing off the dust from the bench, hoisted my bags over my shoulder. The cold didn't bite as much now. "They thought they took everything," I said to myself, stepping toward the exit. But the real game is just beginning. I didn't walk far from the station, just enough to breathe. A small corner coffee shop sat half a block away, wedged between a bank and a barber shop. I stepped inside, the warmth of roasted beans and old wood brushing against my skin like a worn coat I hadn't worn in years. I ordered a plain black coffee, nothing fancy, just something to hold in my hand and anchor me. The place was quiet but not empty. Early risers in suits, students with earbuds and empty notebooks. Everyone pretending to be busy, pretending to know what they were doing. I sat near the window. Outside, winter wasn't fully here, but it was leaning in. The kind of morning that made you pull your coat tighter, even if you didn't feel the cold. But I wasn't shaking from weather. It was the clarity. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't some crossed wire. They left me on purpose, and they smiled while doing it. At breakfast, they laughed too much, asked how I slept. Vanessa even poured me juice. She hadn't done that in years. That kind of kindness, that was strategy. I looked down at my hands wrapped around the cup. I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I was the observant one. And I remembered everything. Last week, there was a family meeting, one I didn't know about until after it happened. Some chat about future planning for the house. Mom dodged the topic when I asked. Vanessa just said, "Yeah, don't worry, everything's going to be easier soon." With that smirk she wore when she lied and thought no one noticed. I wasn't always this alert, but Dad raised me to pay attention. "Always read what you sign," he said, "and keep a copy." I reached into my bag and pulled out the folded piece of paper. The deed. The real one. I'd made a copy and hid the original in my desk drawer before signing anything they handed me. They thought they'd tricked me into transferring it, but what they had me sign was fake. The truth was here. Dad had made one last amendment before he died. His signature sat there next to mine, and under property beneficiary was just one name, mine. I whispered it aloud like a shield. They didn't read the paper I signed. I sat back, letting that settle. They thought they'd pulled off the perfect move, but they missed the detail. The one thing Dad taught me that they always ignored. Don't mistake silence for weakness. I took a long sip from my coffee and stared straight ahead. I wasn't shocked anymore. I was planning. First stop, Dad's old lawyer. Just to be sure everything held up. Then I'd take it from there. Not revenge, just truth, documented and delivered. I pulled out a small notebook from my coat. It was beat up, pages bent from months of scribbled thoughts. In there I had dates, texts, emails, little pieces they'd forgotten I saw. I wasn't collecting them to play gotcha. I was collecting them because I knew deep down they were building towards something. Now I knew what. "You can't play checkers with people playing chess," I muttered. "Learn their moves." A waitress stopped by, wiping the edge of my table. She looked at the paper in my hand, the worn edges, the highlighted text. "Family can be tricky, huh?" she said, not unkind. I looked up at her, late 50s maybe, tired eyes, but kind. "Blood is thicker than water," I said, "but contracts beat both." She chuckled. "Ain't that the truth?" When she walked away, I felt something shift. Maybe this wasn't just me. Maybe what I was going through wasn't unique. Inheritance fights, quiet betrayals, people getting pushed out of what they helped build. It was a story older than all of us. The details changed, but the hurt stayed the same. I put the deed back into my bag, finished my coffee. The lawyer's office wasn't far, just across town. I'd go there next, confirm what I already knew. I wouldn't run, wouldn't yell, wouldn't warn them. They'd find out soon enough. They probably thought I'd be calling, crying, begging to understand, that I'd spiral, that I'd vanish into the background like they always wanted me to. No, I'd show up where it counted. They'd see me then. I stood up, pushed my chair in, zipped my coat. Just as I reached for the door, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. One message. "Stop digging. It's already done." I didn't flinch, just stared at the screen, then slid the phone away. They're watching me, but I've been watching them longer. I parked on a narrow street in downtown Salt Lake City and walked into Halburn Associates, the law firm Dad used for years. The hallway still smelled like old leather and paper. The secretary glanced up, recognized me, nodded. I hadn't been here in a long time. The waiting room felt empty, as though its walls remembered conversations I no longer did. I settled in a chair, hand closed tightly over the deed in my jacket. The ticking clock grew louder, every second reminding me of years I'd been erased, of decisions made without me. I sat quietly, recalling how Dad used to bring me here as a teenager. He'd talked to Mr. Halburn while I watched from the corner. I'd always sat silent, absorbing. I never thought I'd return now, under such circumstances. The contrast between then and now struck me sharply. The boy once ignored, now fully aware. My breath steadied. The echo in the room felt like justice waiting. When Mr. Halburn finally emerged, older now, slower in gait, he motioned me into his office. He didn't waste pleasantries. He studied the deed in my hand, then his eyes met mine. "This is valid," he said. The document stood, my name as sole signatory, Dad's amendment sealed long ago. He revealed what I suspected but needed confirmed. Dad had locked in protective clauses, no sale without my consent. Any attempt by Vanessa or Mom to move the house would crumble legally. My heart clenched. A quiet voice in me said, he foresaw this betrayal. Yet another voice said, why didn't he tell me? Your father didn't trust easy, Mr. Halburn said softly. Not even his own blood. A pang struck me, gratitude tangled with grief. I felt a sudden surge, validation for what I always sensed, and mourning for the silence he left me. He slid a folder across the desk, previous correspondence, amendment drafts, notarized versions. I flipped through them, each page lifting weight off my chest. My eyes stung, but I hadn't cried yet. Then came a memory. In my early 20s, family gatherings were mine to observe. Vanessa would redirect conversations, Mom would smile at her, treat me like an extra. Dad, though, would slip me books on finance and independence. One night, alone on the porch, he said, if they ever try to drown you, don't let them know you can swim. I thought it was metaphor. Now I saw it was instruction. He taught me silently, preparing me for this moment. Their erasure wasn't accidental. I was never meant to fade. Exiting the office, dusk had settled. A message lit my phone. The deed won't save you. My chest went cold. Not just someone taunting me, this was organized. They had allies. I thought of Vanessa's connections in real estate and her quiet conversations mentioning legal friends. It wasn't casual, it was strategy. I called the bank my father used, asked to place a freeze or hold if any movement occurred on that property. They asked for ID, facts. I gave just enough. I got into my car and stared at the mansion across town in the distance, its silhouette dark against the sky. I needed to go there tonight. Not for nostalgia, not for comfort, for answers, for proof, for confrontation. But I wouldn't go blind. Sarah, a distant cousin and attorney, offered to come along. I'd rather face this with someone who understands the rules inside. The mansion was more than wood and walls. It held versions of me I once was. That boy who thought he belonged. Now I returned not for sentiment, but to reclaim what was mine. I pulled up several blocks away. Through a window on the second floor, I saw Vanessa handing a small locked box to a man in a gray suit. The vault box Dad treasured. My stomach tightened. They're handling what they think can't be traced. I stepped back, heart heavy. That box was never meant to leave the house. What else don't I know? I parked the car on the dim street across from the mansion as dusk settled. Its silhouette loomed under the fading light, once a place of comfort, now foreign and ominous. I thought of childhood walks across this lawn, of running barefoot to greet my father. That memory felt like another life. I checked my phone. No calls, no texts, nothing from Mom or Vanessa. A single window upstairs flickered, faint but sure. Someone was home. I took a steady breath. One slow, deliberate step across the lawn. The neighborhood lay quiet, streetlights flickering in the cold air, while inside me, tension grew. I pushed open the front door. It swung easily. The hallway greeted me with emptiness. The walls were freshly painted. Many framed photos were gone. Family gatherings, vacations, my smiling face beside my father, all vanished or moved. On the console table sat the scarf folded like a leaf. I froze. That scarf, that symbol from years ago, now a token of erasure. How many more small things had they removed? They took more than bricks and beams. They stripped identity. I moved toward the study, footsteps quiet on hardwood floors. In a drawer, I found Dad's old ledger, the one he kept to record repairs, codes, names. I flipped pages and noticed patterns, dates, room names, initials. And there, scrawled faintly, Vanessa's middle name next to a room and date. The same names on the deed. My heart pounded. I realized the ledger was more than accounting. It was a map. A hidden correlation between rooms, dates, and legal clauses. They underestimated me. Footsteps overhead. A shift, a breath. I said into the silence, "I know someone's here. I'm not leaving until I get answers." No reply. The echo of my own voice felt heavy, like it bore all the weight of unanswered questions. I called out, "Mom? Vanessa?" Only emptiness answered. I climbed the stairs, each step creaking under the weight of betrayal. Not theirs, but mine, for believing they loved me. At the top, I spotted a shelf with a small recorder. My fingers shook as I pressed play. Mom's voice crackled through, "He doesn't deserve to know." Clarity struck. The plan was drawn long ago. Rage simmered under restraint. How many years did they hide it? I tucked the recorder and ledger into my jacket pockets. My resolve hardened. I would not vanish again. I slipped out as quietly as I came, footsteps careful on the garden path. Night air cut sharp at my senses. My skin tingled, not from cold, but from purpose. Turning toward the drive, I froze. Headlights brightened behind me. That hum of a car engine felt like acknowledgement. Someone came for me. My pulse thudded in my ears. They came back for me. I wonder who's driving. I pulled into the long, winding driveway as night closed in, headlights slicing through the trees like blades. That road used to feel endless when I was a kid. Now it felt like a funnel, pushing me straight toward something I couldn't avoid. The mansion stood ahead, tall and still. No movement, no lights at the entrance. I killed the engine, sat in silence. My hand slipped into my coat pocket, fingers brushing against the recorder, the deed. I wasn't here to argue. I was here to show them what they thought I'd never find. The side door creaked open just like it used to when I was a teenager sneaking in past curfew. Same sound, different reason. Inside, the house was dim, only a few warm lamps lit in the distance. I kept low, moving through the hallway I could still trace in the dark. Voices pulled me to the parlor, quiet, hurried. I crouched behind a low armchair, shadows covering me. Mom's voice, tight, clipped. Vanessa's tone, irritated, sharp. "We need to burn those pages tonight," she said. "What about the financials?" Mom whispered. "The ones tied to the trust?" "We move everything silently. He can't know about the box. If he opens it, we lose everything." My pulse spiked. I hit record on the device in my pocket, angling it toward the voices. Their silhouettes shifted behind the sheer curtain between rooms. I could make out Vanessa standing near the fireplace, Mom sitting with a folder open in her lap. This wasn't just family talk, it was strategy. Then I saw it. The box. Dad's old vault box. They unlocked it with a small key I hadn't seen since his funeral. Inside, I glimpsed papers, jewelry, and something wrapped in a cloth. "He wrote her out before the stroke," Vanessa muttered. "This is his last clean slate. If we lose this, everything unravels." I leaned in. Clean slate. I knew exactly what that meant. The amendment. Proof that I wasn't just a pawn they overlooked. I was the only one with a legal claim. I'd been chasing paper trails. They'd been hiding the fire. I stepped into the light, calm, firm. I heard enough. Vanessa snapped her head toward me. Mom froze. "You have no right here," Vanessa hissed. "This house, this box, these lies. I have every right." I pulled the recorder out, held it in the air. Her face went pale. "I've got your words now. Every whisper, every plan, every cover-up." The weight in the room shifted. Mom looked at Vanessa. Vanessa didn't flinch. Then she reached behind the mantel and pressed something. Music blasted from speakers. Not a song, a feed, a live stream. "You think you're clever," she sneered. We weren't hiding. We were waiting. Footsteps echoed from the hall. A couple of well-dressed guests walked in, confused. Their eyes landed on us, brows furrowing. "They think you're the intruder now," Vanessa whispered. "Want to see what public shame feels like?" I didn't move. "Let them watch," I said calmly. I tapped my phone, sent audio from my recorder straight into the feed. Her voice, her words echoed from the speakers. "If he opens this, we lose everything." Faces turned. Her expression shifted from smug to stunned. Mom looked like she wanted to vanish. I backed into the hallway. More guests were arriving. The murmurs were growing. I placed a folded note on the table beside the box. "I'm coming back. and next time, with everything. I slipped out the way I came in, into the night. The cool air stung my face, but my hands weren't shaking anymore. My phone buzzed. Notifications stacked like bricks. Emails, texts, pings. One message lit the screen. You just opened Pandora's box. Be careful tonight. They thought they trapped me in their stage. They never saw the real show. I awoke before dawn, the motel room dim and quiet. Morning light filtered through the blinds, casting soft lines across the bed and the recorder and ledger on the desk. My hand hovered over both, a silent promise that one of them would be my weapon tonight. I could hear nothing else. Just my breathing, slow and steady. I laid plans in my mind, which evidence to release first, who to contact, how to force their hand without going down myself. I texted Ezreal. Tonight I make my move. I felt something shift deep inside. They stole my past. Tonight I'd take it back. I slipped the scarf, leaf folded, into my pocket, a quiet anchor to the man I always meant to be. By 6, the mansion's yard was lit with spotlights. Vanessa stood before cameras, a stage set for her grand vision. Banners hung heavy in the breeze. The property, her name, her brand. Reporters clustered in front, their lenses fixed. She cleared her throat, surveying the crowd, ignoring the empty space where I should have stood. A new chapter begins tonight under my leadership, she declared. She spoke of growth, community, legacy, words carefully polished. But there was an absence. My name, my claim, my voice. I watched from the shadows beyond the fence, anger coiled beneath my chest. I expected this stunt. I slipped through a side gate, keeping tight to shadows. Inside, hallways stretched long and silent. I moved through them carefully, pausing when guards passed by, hearts frozen beneath my ribs. I overheard Vanessa's speech begin in the grand hall. She introduced the Delancey Legacy Project and spoke of transforming the property into a foundation. I caught a fragment. Quiet transfer tonight, she said, almost in passing. My heart thudded. She intended to change titles tonight, erase me publicly. I noted names of those standing near her, faces lit by stage lights. None bore my face or my name. I stayed low, breathing smooth, letting every step forward be deliberate. I made for the stage steps, resolved to confront her head-on. A helper blocked me, saying, "This section's for honored guests only." I froze. I am an honored guest. The MC's voice echoed, "Please remain in your section, sir." The crowd murmured. Vanessa paused mid-sentence, eyes flicking to the edge of the stage where I stood. She offered a cold smile. They denied me entry, even though every legal document already declared me the rightful heir. It stung more than pain. It was erasure in plain daylight. I pulled out the recorder and handed it to the stage technician, asking him to play a clip. The crowd gasped when Mom's voice crackled over the speaker. "He doesn't deserve to know yet." Faces twisted. Vanessa's color drained. I stepped forward and said loud enough for all, "You all deserve more than PR lines. You deserve truth." The energy shifted. Some nodded. Some gaped. She tried to cover her mouth, but it was too late. I held my ground, letting the evidence speak louder than any word she might utter. I began climbing the steps toward the stage. On the event program held by a guest, I saw my name printed, but not as heir. I was listed at the bottom as Staff Liaison. Staff Liaison, a title worse than exclusion, a jape. My blood ran cold. The insult seared more than the absence. I hesitated just a moment, collecting myself. Then I faced the crowd fully. I didn't need to scream. I only needed conviction. "Let me finish," I said. "Or trust me, you'll hear from me soon." Eyes locked. Cameras clicked. The night trembled. Tonight, I didn't just strike back. I declared war. The grand hall was already buzzing by the time I walked in. Lights glared overhead, bouncing off polished marble floors. Every chair filled. Press badges glinted in the crowd. I could hear murmurs before I even reached the central aisle. Faces I recognized from childhood moved like ghosts through the crowd. Former partners, distant cousins, neighbors who once smiled when Dad walked by. But tonight wasn't about memories. It was war. I adjusted the recorder in my inside pocket, fingers brushing the corner of the deed folded beside it. Dad used to say, "If it feels too calm, get ready." I was ready. The woman by the door handed me a program with a forced smile. I scanned it, buried at the bottom. My name, not as heir, not even his family. Administrative staff, printed in small font like a typo. It wasn't. It was a message, an insult delivered in front of every set of eyes that mattered. At the podium, Vanessa's name was bolded under the title, Visionary Leader of the Delancey Legacy Project. Not a single mention of me, not even once. Murmurs swirled as guests noticed. I stood up. No rage on my face and just decision. They wanted me invisible. I wasn't giving them that. I moved toward the stage. Security hesitated. Guests leaned in, confused. I didn't sneak. I walked straight. At the stairs, I raised my voice. I deserve a voice tonight. Ava, sitting beside Vanessa, shot up. This is our event, not yours. I stepped up one more rung. No, I said. It was my father's legacy, and I signed for it, every inch of it. A hush hit the room. Some faces twisted in curiosity. Some turned away. Others just stared. They wanted me to crack or shrink. Instead, I spoke with something they didn't plan for, clarity. Vanessa moved toward the microphone, unbothered. She held up a folded letter, Dad's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. Then she began reading. At first, the words matched what I remembered. Then she said it. Ava, I trust you to carry forward what we built. Ava, not Corvo. I stood still. I didn't interrupt. I let every word hang. Gasps broke out. Flashes clicked. I looked at her face, polished outside, panicked underneath. She'd been pretending for too long, and now she read my father's farewell like it was addressed to her, like I never existed. That moment stung in a way no betrayal ever had. I kept breathing, steady, controlled. When she stopped, I raised my voice again. Let's hear the original, line by line. I lifted my phone and projected snippets of Dad's code. The deed, the ledger, the phrases only I could decode. On screen, pieces of phrases, room labels, initials, dates. A man in the second row looked confused, then whispered, "That's my daughter's name." Another leaned in, recognizing his own involvement. The room started shifting. Eyes turned, shoulders squared. And my voice cut again. You can't rewrite blood, not mine, not his. For the first time tonight, I wasn't alone. Mom stepped out of the side hallway, walking fast toward the podium. He's upset, she said, hands up. But this is for the family. I didn't move. Guards closed in from both sides. I could feel it, the trap snapping shut. Then, lights flickered. The screen behind Vanessa glitched, then locked. For half a breath, the room froze. Then it blinked alive. The original deed, projected for all to see. Corvo Delling, sole heir. Vanessa's knees nearly buckled. Ava didn't blink, but her lip twitched. Mom turned her head slowly. No one spoke. I didn't just fight for truth. I forced it into the light. I stayed where the stage was heavy with lights for a long moment, breathing in the aftermath. The projection of the original deed blinked once, then faded into black. A hush rippled across the hall. Vanessa had already slipped off stage. Whether escorted or fleeing, I couldn't tell. Mom stood just beyond the platform, eyes fixed on the floor as if she could dissolve into it. A few people drifted toward me, offering quiet words. I believe you now. My legs threatened to tremble, but I held steady. The exposure was real, but victory would come later. Backstage, I found David waiting in the shadows. His face was tight with concern. They won't stop here, he whispered. He carried a flash drive and a phone screen showing a time-stamped image. Vanessa and a notary at a desk months after Dad's death. She filed a second deed in a smaller county, he said. His voice cracked. It's a backup, a fail-safe. They designed this. He handed me papers Dad had given him and said he'd kept them locked away, afraid to reveal them. I accepted them with deliberate calm. Trust felt like fire, but I knew I had no choice. I walked to the hallway and found Mom leaning against a wall, staring at a portrait of Dad. I motioned quietly. Was any of it ever real? My voice shook. She didn't turn. We did what we had to. For your sister's future, she said gently. I took a step closer. What about mine? She placed a pale hand on the frame. Your father never forgave himself for leaving you out. Her silence ended with a breath, not a defense. It was confession. I realized then, her quiet complicity had done more damage than her lies. I went to my old bedroom, the one I still recognized. It was dusty and empty, memories folded into corners. I sat by the window, papers and childhood drawings still lying in the drawers. The tears came slow, but they came. Not for the loss, but for years I thought I was invisible. Sometimes, when they don't come for you, you build alone, I whispered. I closed my eyes and collected myself. Dad's voice echoed, "Paper holds power, but presence wins hearts." I knew then that presence was what I owed myself now. A knock startled me. Sarah stood in the doorway, my cousin who had kept distance all these years. She held a folder tight. "I've been quiet too long," she said. She was now a lawyer. She slid over documents Dad had given her, a contingency trust in my name. "He set this up in secret," she said quietly, "just in case." Her eyes were steady. We laid the files on my desk and talked strategy, legal moves, public presentation, next threats. For the first time that night, I felt anchored, not adrift. By midnight, I'd filed an emergency hearing request. My statement had hit media outlets. David arranged a live QA with Dad's former attorney. I released a calm, factual public version of my side. No drama, only truth. The momentum was shifting. They wouldn't bury me under lies this time. I'd built enough signal to break through their noise. A soft click at the door, not a knock this time. An envelope slid underneath. I picked it up. No return address, just one line. "You've made a mistake. Stop now or lose more than land." I folded it slowly and slid it into my jacket. I whispered to the dark. If they wanted me silent, they should never have taught me to speak. The courthouse looked just like I remembered from the last time I stood here alone. Gray stone, too many steps, and a cold that seeped through even the brightest morning. But this time, I wasn't hiding. I wasn't begging. I wasn't the forgotten son. Today, I walked in through the front door, past reporters, past stares, past whispers. Every footstep sounded louder in my own ears, but I didn't stop. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Not just lawyers and clerks, neighbors I hadn't seen in years. Family, or what was left of it. The kind of crowd you get when a scandal finally starts cracking open. I gripped the deed, the recorder, and my composure. Nothing else. My chest was tight, but steady. This is where truth meets consequence. When the judge asked me to proceed, I didn't hesitate. I stepped forward and opened the original deed. My voice didn't shake as I read it aloud, clause by clause, word for word. Every piece was in place, just as my father wrote it. When I reached the contested section, I let it hang in the room a moment before continuing. The judge leaned in, tapping his pen twice against the bench. I pulled out the recorder and pressed play. My mother's voice crackled through the speakers, clear, hesitant. "He doesn't need to know yet. We'll take care of it after." Then Vanessa's, calculated, sharp, "Just file it quietly. No one checks those offices anymore." Gasps. Murmurs. One of Vanessa's attorneys jumped up, citing improper submission. The judge silenced him with a look. "This court finds the backup deed invalid and confirms the original is legal and binding," he said, calm and deliberate. "Property ownership is restored." I didn't smile. I just nodded once, quietly. Let it land. Vanessa sat across from me, lips pressed so tight they'd gone white. She refused to meet my eyes. My mother sat beside her, hands clasped tight in her lap like she was praying, or bracing. I stood up again. "You rewrote my father's words," I said, "but truth doesn't break just because you pretend it never existed." Vanessa barked out, "You twisted the whole thing. You made it public, painted us as monsters." I didn't flinch. I told the truth. That's what hurt. My mother's eyes finally met mine. I couldn't read what was in them. Regret, maybe, or just the weight of years she'd helped carry a lie. I didn't ask her to say anything. I didn't need her to. I left them with their silence. That was louder than anything I could have said. Outside, the air felt thicker than usual. Reporters crowded around. Some called my name. Some asked questions. Most just stared. A few neighbors nodded at me, people who used to turn their backs. One older man stopped me near the steps. "You finally got what they kept from you," he said. Your dad'd be proud." I shook his hand. I didn't say much. There wasn't much left to say. By late afternoon, Sarah and I returned to the mansion. No press. No audience. Just us and years of damage to sift through. We walked from room to room, peeling back sheets, brushing off dust, slowly reclaiming what was mine. We stopped in the foyer beneath Dad's old portrait. I rehung it myself. "This wasn't just a house," I said, mostly to myself. "It's what he built, what they tried to bury." Sarah stood beside me. "It's yours now. Do right by it." I nodded. We'd already begun outlining a foundation in Dad's name, a real one, not a vanity project. Something for the town, scholarships, housing help, maybe mentorship, things he would have backed, not to erase what happened, but to use it. That night, I sat at his old desk, lights dimmed. The framed scarf I'd once folded in pain now sat neatly on the shelf. I ran my fingers along its edge. "I carry your voice now," I whispered. There were still loose ends. Public opinion, family ties, old wounds that wouldn't heal overnight. But I'd chosen my path. They didn't define it anymore. I stood up and opened the window. The night air was cool. Still. But somewhere out there, something new waited. Then my phone buzzed. An email. No subject. No name. Just one line. "You think you've won? There's one more truth you don't know." I stared at it, jaw tight. The verdict is in, but the story isn't over.